The last time I walked through the doors of a nursing home, I was visiting a friend. He was 74 years old, and the staff at the front desk greeted me with the kind of warmth you show someone who does not live there. I remember looking at the floors, how clean they were, and at the hallways, and at the people sitting in chairs near the window, how quiet it all was. Quiet in a way that had nothing to do with peace, and everything to do with waiting for something that was not coming. That was 11 years ago. I am 89 years old. I have never spent a single night as a patient in one. Not one night. And I want to tell you how that happened, because I promise you, it did not happen by luck, and it did not happen by accident. My name is Harold James Callahan. I am 89 years old, and I am sitting in my own kitchen right now in my own chair at my own table in the house I have lived in for 46 years. I was born in 1937 in a small town in rural Georgia, and I intend to die in this same house on my own terms. I cook my own meals every single day. I walk 2 miles every morning before the neighborhood wakes up. I tend my own garden. I live alone, without anyone hovering over me. I sleep through the night. I have outlived 3 doctors. And I have never needed a nursing home. I hold no medical degrees. What I hold is 89 years inside this body. And that may be the only credential that actually matters for what I am about to share. But I want you to know it was not always like this. And if you are watching this right now because something in your body has started not cooperating the way it used to, I need you to stay with me, because I have been exactly where you are. I know what that feels like, and I want to tell you what I found on the other side of it. When I was 71 years old, something started happening in my legs that I did not have a name for. It was not pain exactly. It was weight, like someone had poured wet concrete into my thighs overnight while I was sleeping, and never said a word about it. Getting out of my chair in the morning had become a kind of negotiation I had never needed before in my life. I would sit on the edge of the bed, both hands pressed into my knees, and I would simply wait for my body to decide to come along with me. By 73, I had started grabbing the wall on the way to the bathroom at night. Not every night at first, just some nights, and then most nights. And I told myself it was normal. I told myself every man my age grabbed a wall now and then, that it was just a thing that happened. Friends, I want to be honest with you. That is not what I really believed. What I truly believed, what I was afraid to say out loud in the daylight, was that I could feel the beginning of something. Not death, something quieter and slower than death. I could feel the drift beginning. The slow erosion of everything I had spent 70 years building, my independence, my mornings, my kitchen, my right to wake up and make my own decisions about what the day was going to be. I had watched it happen to men I respected, good men, decent men, men who had worked with their hands their whole lives, farmers, carpenters, men who had never asked for much, and who had ended up somewhere quiet with folded hands and a television neither of them had chosen. I had sat beside my friend Raymond in that facility, on those clean floors, surrounded by all that genuine kindness, and I had made myself a promise on the drive home, a quiet promise. The kind you do not say out loud because you are afraid of what it means if you cannot keep it. I was not willing to go that way. I refused to accept that this was simply aging. I made a quiet, fierce decision that my kitchen and my garden and my own 2 legs were going to stay mine for as long as I was drawing breath. But refusing something and knowing what to do about it are 2 entirely different things, and for 2 years, I did not know what to do. I went to my doctor. He was a kind man, thorough, experienced, genuinely concerned about me. He ran his tests. He sat across from me, looked at his notes, and then he looked at me, and he said the words I have come to know better than I would like. Harold, at your age, this is quite common. We can manage it. Manage it. He wrote me a prescription for the inflammation. He recommended I cut back on my walking because of the strain on my joints. He told me to be careful on stairs. He was not trying to diminish me. I want to be absolutely clear about that. He meant every word, and he was a good doctor within the limits of what the system gave him to work with. But those limits were real. That system had one tool available, and that tool was management. Not restoration, not reversal. Management. I filled the prescription. I took it for 4 months. My legs felt the same. My sleep got worse. I went back. He adjusted the dosage. I left his office feeling like a problem being administered rather than a man being helped. That was when I stopped waiting for someone to fix me and started paying close attention to people who simply were not broken. His name was Dwight. We had served together a long time ago, in the kind of circumstances that forge friendships that need no maintenance and feel no passage of time. We had not seen each other in 15 years when he called one afternoon to say he was passing through Georgia and wanted to stop by. He was 91 years old. He walked up my porch steps without touching the railing. He sat down in the other chair, crossed his legs like a man decades younger, and I watched him settle in without saying a word. I just sat there and watched him, the way you watch someone when you are trying to understand something your mind has not yet caught up with. Finally I said, "Dwight, what in the world are you doing?" He laughed a little, the short, quiet laugh of a man who knows something and has been waiting to be asked. And then he told me. He did not use medical language. He did not talk about studies or protocols or interventions. He talked about what he had learned to do and when and why and what had changed when he started. He talked the way men of a certain generation talk about everything that truly matters, directly, without decoration, from inside a life actually lived. I listened for 3 hours. I took no notes. I did not need to. Stay with me, 'cause what Dwight told me on that porch is the reason I am sitting in my own kitchen at 89 years old and not somewhere with folded hands and a television I did not choose. The first thing Dwight said was that he walked every morning, and I almost put the brakes on right there because I had been walking my entire life. I thought I understood what walking was. He shook his head slowly. He told me that most men walk wrong. They walk for exercise. They push hard. They try to cover ground. They come home breathing heavy and call it done. And that kind of walking, done that way, at our age, can work against the very thing you are trying to prevent. It raises the stress hormones in your body. It puts pressure on joints that have already been through decades of use. It sends a signal to your system that you are under strain. What he did instead was this. He walked slowly, deliberately, 30 minutes every single morning before he ate anything, at a pace where he could hold a full conversation without losing his breath. No music, no destination in mind. Just the morning and his legs and the ground beneath him. He said the goal was not fitness in the way we were taught to think about it. The goal was circulation and signal, consistent daily movement that tells your body your legs are still in use, that they still matter, that they are not to be given up on. Mayo Clinic research on muscle preservation and fall prevention in older adults supports exactly this, that low-intensity, consistent morning movement maintains the blood flow and neuromuscular communication in the muscles that support your joints, the ones that begin to deteriorate when left still for too long. Within a week of his visit, I started, slowly. Every single morning, before breakfast, before the neighborhood was awake. Within 3 weeks, the weight in my legs was lighter. Not gone, lighter. Within 3 months, I was not grabbing the wall anymore. Not most nights, not any nights. I have walked every morning for 15 years. Under my own power, without fail. But what Dwight told me next surprised me in a way I did not see coming. I was raised on butter and bacon grease, and I was prepared to defend that position to my last breath. But Dwight, who came from the exact same era and the same cooking traditions, had made one specific change to his kitchen, and he said it had shifted something fundamental in how his joints felt, how his thinking moved through the day, how he woke up in the mornings ready to be upright. He had switched to cooking with olive oil, not occasionally, every single day, without exception, for everything. Now here is the wrong way most people approach this, and I want you to hear this clearly because it is the difference between something working and something doing nothing at all. The wrong way is to add olive oil on top of everything else you already eat, to drizzle it on as a supplement while the rest of your cooking stays exactly the same. That is not what Dwight did. He replaced. He stopped cooking with anything else and started cooking everything in olive oil. His eggs, his vegetables, whatever meat was on the table. Harvard Health has written extensively on what olive oil does inside the body. It contains a compound called oleocanthal that functions in your joints the way a gentle natural anti-inflammatory does. The populations around the Mediterranean who have made it a daily staple for generations show measurably lower rates of the joint deterioration and cognitive decline that we have been told is simply the cost of growing older. It is not a cure. It is not a miracle. It is a consistent daily signal, the same principle as the walk, that your body is being maintained and intends to keep going. Within a week of switching, I noticed it first in my hands in the morning, less resistance when I tried to close them around my coffee cup, then in my knees, my own kitchen, my own meals, my own choice, every single day for 15 years. Now here is the part one have kept mostly to myself until today. Dwight asked me how I was sleeping. I told him 2-3 times a night I was up. He nodded slowly, the way a man nods when he is confirming something he has heard before. He told me he had done the same for years, and that every doctor he had seen called it normal, expected, just what happens when you age. He told me that was the wrong answer, the wrong way most people try to fix this, and I understood why, because I had been there myself, lying awake at 2 in the morning for the 4th night in a row, is sleep medication. He had tried it, and the problem with sleep medication is not that it fails to put you to sleep. It is that what it puts you into is not the kind of sleep your body actually needs. You are technically under, but the deep restorative work that should be happening, the repair of muscle tissue, the regulation of inflammation, the processes that keep your joints and your mind functioning when morning comes, that work does not get done. You wake up reaching for the wall again because your body spent the night treading water instead of restoring itself. What Dwight had changed was one thing. He stopped eating anything at all in the 3 hours before he went to bed, and he stopped drinking anything except water after 6 in the evening, every single night, no exceptions. The National Institutes of Health research on sleep and aging shows that eating close to bedtime disrupts the hormonal processes the body depends on during sleep to repair muscle tissue and regulate inflammation, the very systems that keep you moving independently through the day. When your digestive system is working at the same time your body needs to be restoring itself, something has to give. It cannot fully do both jobs at once. Within a week of making that one change, I slept through the night. 4 hours became 6, 6 became 7. And when the sleep came back, truly came back, everything else got easier. The mornings belonged to me again. I have slept through the night in my own bed, in my own home, consistently for years. That is not a small thing. Now I need to stop talking about the body for a moment, because near the end of that afternoon, just before Dwight stood up and walked down my porch steps without touching the railing, he turned back and said something I have not forgotten in 15 years. He said, "Harold, everything I just told you, the walking, the food, the sleep, that is maybe 30% of it. You hear me? 30%. I asked him what the other 70 was. He said, having a reason to get up. I have thought about that sentence nearly every day since he said it, and I believe it more completely now at 89 than I did the afternoon I first heard it. I want to tell you something I have not shared in any video before today. After my wife Margaret passed, that was 9 years ago now, I did everything right. Every single morning I walked. Every meal I cooked myself in my own kitchen. Every night I slept through. My body was doing precisely what I had spent years teaching it to do. And I was hollow. I do not know a better word for it. I was not sick. I was not in pain. My legs worked, my sleep was steady, but I was not present exactly. I would wake up in the morning and my first thought, before the coffee, before putting on my shoes, was a quiet question that sat in my chest like a stone. Just one word. Why? Not in a desperate way, in a tired way, in the way of a man who has done his job well for a very long time and was no longer sure what job came next. In the way of a man who had been needed and was not certain he still was. That is when the drift almost got me. Not through my legs, through my purpose. What brought me back was not a program or a plan. It was a Tuesday morning in October, 2 years after Margaret passed. My neighbor's grandson knocked on my front door. He was 7 years old. He asked me if I knew how to fix a bicycle tire. I did. I fixed it. He sat on my porch step and watched every move I made and asked me questions for 40 minutes. Why does the air go in there? What is that tool called? How do you know when it is enough? When he finally stood up to leave, he looked back at me and said, "Mr. Harold, can I come back tomorrow?" That boy came back for 3 years, every week or so. And in those 3 years, I got up every single morning, without once asking myself why. I am telling you this because I have watched people do everything physically right, the walking, the food, the medicine, and still disappear into themselves. And I have watched others who were far from perfect in their habits live into their late 80s with their minds sharp and their eyes still lit from the inside. And the difference every single time was the same. The ones who stayed had somewhere to be, someone who needed them, something that was not yet finished. Your body is more forgiving than you have been told. It is designed to heal. It will follow your lead if you give it somewhere worth going. I read letters every week from people watching these videos. I tend a garden my neighbors stop at the fence to admire. I have a card game on Thursday evenings with 3 men who are counting on me to be there. Those 3 things are not hobbies. They are medicine. Purpose is medicine. And it is the one kind no doctor can prescribe and no pharmacy can fill. That is not a small thing. That is everything. If you know someone whose mornings start with legs that will not come along quietly, with nights that will not hold, with the quiet fear of ending up somewhere they did not choose, share this with them today, not tomorrow. Today. Leave your first name and age in the comments below. I read every single one. I want to know who is out there. And tell me one person you are going to reach out to today. One name? That is all I am asking. We are not done talking yet. This is my personal experience after 89 years and 15 years of applying what I have shared here. Always speak with your doctor before making any changes to your health routine.